Okay, we are live according to this.
Looks like it.
All right, welcome everyone. I'm Pokeball. This is AnonTCG. Thanks for coming on. We actually talked quite a bit before this. Had a really good conversation. Now we're gonna talk more about market stuff, answer some questions.
I apologize, guys. We're supposed to start at 12 o'clock, and I moved a work call to 12:30. I had to jump on, so instead of cutting things off in the middle and extending, we just pushed a little bit. So it's my fault.
Yeah, no problem. It turns out we're actually like completely opposite, like Pokemon investor, financial, whatever you call it. I'm more of the like buy and hold at the moment because I don't have distribution access, and you're more into like the weeds of the business a little more. So it's really interesting to get that take.
Yeah, so it's interesting, and the more I talk to folks, and in the Discord, I did one with Crystal TCG, who's actually in our Discord. Just spoke to him briefly the other day. Yeah, there's really two different methodologies of investing / making money in Pokemon. You have the retail side, which is what we do, where we're able to buy from distribution at a reasonably low price given the current market. And then we sell for whatever the market price is, and you're constantly churning product. And in that scenario, you're only as effective as your ability to get product as new releases come out or restocks, which obviously a lot of that's going to big box now. So the ability to get restocks from distribution at reasonable prices has been a little bit challenging. And then you have the retail piece, which is what you had mentioned, where you don't have access to distribution. So you're picking and choosing your spots between the quality of sets, the relative pricing in your own mind, your own analysis, such as prismatic evolutions right now. The ETBs are kind of smashed because this is probably the most supply that's ever going to be on the market. So you look on TCG Player, they're sitting at $105. You look at the big box stores, they're at $50. You would go out and you would buy them and sit them on the shelves and wait for the price to appreciate over time. And then given your own life circumstance or your own preference, you would liquidate at some point in the future, presumably at a higher value. So it's really two completely different economic, what's the word? Financial models, if you will.
Yeah, and I think you've done like an amazing job with it. Because I've watched a lot of videos about like getting distribution. It's like really long grind. And you're getting capital is definitely a big issue, especially once the market does crash. Like a lot of people are gonna be in trouble. You also mentioned like expanding out to like other sites is really helpful, like Magic. I've heard that as well. But yeah, but you also get a lot of insights. Like, do you hold? Are you holding anything right now? Like, as you get supply, I heard some people they hold a small bit of amounts, or are you still just burning like pretty much everything?
So what's interesting when we first started going through this, we had planned on keeping X number of boxes as quote unquote investment. But as things have matured and time passes, we'll sell everything into Discord and our customer base as they want, as long as we have it. So what we're left with is kind of the throwaway stuff that people don't want. And what's been super interesting over the last year is more often than not, those items end up to be better performers because, as we know, when pricing of things aren't moving up, people are less likely to want to buy them. If things are at all-time highs, everybody in the world wants them in Pokemon. So it's completely counterintuitive and exactly the opposite of how you should look at things. And I'll give you a perfect example. Shrouded Fable is completely dead. Nobody wants it. In my view, over the next year, it's probably going to be one of the best performing sets just because of its relative inexpensiveness to everything else. And then you have your 151, your Paldean Fates, your SV 1 through 4 that are all going to rotate out in April of 2026. And assuming that the crypto and the stock market is not materially lower than what it is today, the pricing of those products is most likely going to be significantly higher than what it is today. And everybody on the retail side is going to look for reasonable entry points. And right now, the only reasonable entry point is really Shrouded Fable.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people talk about Shrouded Fable. Like, there's some jokes of like, oh, Shrouded Fable to the moon. But yeah, with the limited supply, like, It could, because I know like Rebel Clash and Sword Shield base, like they're not really good sets at all, but there's so little of them that like the prices were just like higher. Like I think Sword Shield base hit like 600. It's more expensive than a lot of the other good boxes. So yeah, just things like that can happen. And yeah, a lot of like if you're doing a business, you have to kind of get capital, get money flowing. You have to get allocation. If you're investing, then you have to like think about, hey, if I put money into this, is it gonna rise? Is it safe? Risk is a big part of it. And I think you mentioned during our previous conversation how like investing and getting into Pokemon right now is really easy because the market just generally goes up. But later on, it's gonna be a little harder. So a lot of people aren't really thinking about risk now, and they're like, "Wait, what? Shrouded Fable? Why would I ever get that?"
Yeah, and you bring up a good point with the risk tolerance of folks. I'm a little bit older in my career, so I have a little bit more capital than some of the smaller LGSs and some of the younger folks. So I'm a little bit more focused on capital preservation than FOMO, YOLO, whatever you want to call it. But if you look at the crash that happened post-COVID, the reason why everything fell so far so fast is the government unlocked doors and people now had alternatives on where to spend their cash. It's effectively a black swan event that hadn't happened since 1917, 1918 from a pandemic perspective. We look at the market today, I don't see any catalyst where the market is going to completely fall off a cliff next day. It's almost impossible to even fathom something from a catastrophic risk, unless there's war, in which case your money's worth nothing anyway. So who gives a shit? Because we're either dead or we're not. So I think from that perspective, the downside risk on a lot of this stuff, people will be able to liquidate if they need to and not take too massive of a haircut on products, because I don't see the demand for this slowing down to the standpoint or to the magnitude where there is a gigantic drop off in value, especially for the products that are out there. Now, for new products, whether we get back to 160, 170 per box at release is going to be a function of multiple things. How many boxes are printed? How much comes to distribution? Are some of the smaller LGSs, do they end up getting choked up because they can't get enough product, for example, because they're not getting restocks? And then, what does big box look like? And what is the general love for the Pokemon IP? It tends to ebb and flow over time. So, I think the biggest concern, and this is even on a risk perspective, is we have Legends EA coming out in the middle of October. Is that going to turbocharge everything as well to the point where we start to see boxes that are $300 plus at release?
Yeah, I've heard about a lot of people talk about the one like getting back to about MSRP, probably not like back down to like the hundreds as we saw with like a lot of sets before. Like I remember like up until like December last year, you could easily get like Scarlet base Paradox Stella for about 100 from like certain sites. But yeah, the 160 mark is really interesting because they'll have to print a lot in order for it to get to that point. And yeah, a lot of people aren't really sure what's gonna happen. There's a lot of like still positive sides going on. Historically, like going back down to something has happened, but we're not like no one's really had a definitive sort of hey, it'll happen now. And I also hear like sometimes the printing capacity is like, are they even gonna be able to like call the demand? And you also mentioned like the rarities. Also, like I know for Scarlet Violet, a lot of and Sword and Shield, a lot of the big things was like the alt arts, and it seems like with every kind of error, like there's like some cards that go out of style. Like for Sword and Shield, there was like the rainbow rares. And, yeah, I actually really like those too, and I was like, oh, like I was like, why are these cards so cheap now? I was like, oh, because no one likes them. And you mentioned there's like newer rarities and like the new Mega Evolution set coming out, which I've seen those too. Yeah, I don't really know how they'll do long term or how like what will happen. Like that could be some issues. There could be some issues with that. Like I think short term, you mentioned how there's really good data that it will help. That you said you looked at for like it'll be comparable to Destined Rivals possibly if the data kind of keeps up.
Yeah, so it's going to be super interesting because it seems like the Pokemon Company has been super focused on making us in North America love their gold cards. So the fact that they made the Mega Gardevoir and is it Lucario I believe is the other one. in gold. Now, granted, they're beautiful cards on the computer. I'm sure they're much more beautiful in person, but it's going to be super interesting to see what the reception is from the general public, who kind of has an aversion to gold cards. Now, if they get accepted, the sky's the limit. If they don't, the set might get shit on, because there is a lot of value in the trainer gallery, or the trainer cards, which never translate well from Japanese to English. To touch on one of the other points you mentioned about about getting back to somewhere around the MSRP number, I kind of liken it to what the Fed's trying to do with the soft landing on inflation. There's no way for it to fall off a cliff to get back there. It's going to be a long-term process over many, many releases, where they're going to have to keep ratcheting up print runs, or quite honestly, if they made one or two just shitty sets in a row, like in Obsidian or Stellar Crown to some extent, that would probably do it, because then you're taking the demand part of the equation and shrinking that, which isn't the smartest business decision to do if you're the Pokemon company, but that is a way to do it. Obviously, the other way to do it is just to continue to increase print runs. And honestly, I think, and you and I spoke about this, and I mentioned that I disagree with Rudy's take about pushing product through big box stores being the right thing to do. I actually agree with Nostalgianomics. I think he's dead on where it should go through distribution. And the reason why I say that is, if you look at the concept of pushing product through distribution at $50 or $60, or I'm sorry, through big box stores, Costco's, Walmart's at $50, $60 for an ETB, whatever the MSRP is, plus the $5 or $10 they've added. In theory, this should work. It should cast a wider net. It should get more cheap product out to people, but it breaks down when it gets to the personnel issues. So you have the botting, the scalping on the website that nobody's fixed. Nobody's ever going to fix, because there's too much money in it. The Walmarts, the Targets, the Costcos, the Sams of the world are never going to spend enough to fix it, because they have no incentive to. They're just trying to sell product. So that's going to be an issue. Then you have the in-store stuff. And as you and I spoke about, you're now dealing with lower wage employees making $15, $20 an hour. And if somebody walks up and says, hey, I'll pay you $5,000 if you sell me this pallet, guess what? They're going to leave with the pallet, and there's nothing the Pokemon company can do about it. So it's kind of like socialism, right? It works on paper, but at the end of the day, somebody has to be in charge. So pushing that product through distribution will work from the perspective that is, as long as the distributors aren't gouging, which it kind of depends on the distributor, kind of depends on the product. And quite honestly, I think it's more a factor of how much product they are getting, because they're businesses as well. They have to make money. If for some reason there was a large amount of product that continues to hit of the same set, and it can be in different SKUs, to the point where stores are getting this and they're dumping it on the market, because the stores are trying to make payroll. They have bills to make. If they make $100 a box versus $120, they don't give a shit. They'll sell it for $80 and make money on it. You're going to start to see a concerted race to lower numbers, because there's so many people in small LGSs getting the product. They're going to continue to dump it on the market and be far less disciplined than the folks that are botting and scalping, because they have a much higher price point than what the stores would have getting it through distribution.
So I kind of just thought about this, but I know that during the crashes, it's like a bunch of LGSs will go out of business because they'll buy a lot, or like they'll get over allocated, they'll pay it, and then they won't have any money, or they'll just say, I don't want the allocation, and they'll get cut off. Distributors, do you think some of them are at risk for also kind of running out of money without any supply coming in? Like, do you think at some point, like, I know Magic is starting to transition out of it, and then Pokemon, like, it's only giving so much. Do you think some of them are in danger of also like kind of going out of business? Because they do have a bunch of overhead costs.
You're talking on the LGS side?
On the distribution side, I know the LGSs have that issue. I don't hear people talk about the distribution side as much. So I'm just like kind of wondering.
No, I don't think so at all. And I mean, of the main distributors, Some of them do a lot with toys, and this is a smaller part of their business. A bunch of them do a lot with sports cards, and this is a smaller part of the business. The private ones are perfectly fine. You have the Southerns of the world that are owned by private equity, which their business is consolidated with Dragon Shield, as well as Beckett Grading. So they are extremely highly levered, and they were in, not Southern, but the overall parent company was in some rough financial shape to the point where they had to restructure just because of Beckett Grading taking a little bit of a step backwards. And they were also bought and levered in 2021, I believe, like at the height of the COVID bubble. But a lot of the distributors, they're private. They obviously don't disclose their debt, but they have no reason to have magnitudes of debt from that perspective, and they are diversified. You know, if for whatever reason the economy tanked and sports cards got destroyed because Fanatics so Fanatics now owns all of the licenses, all of the main 4 sports licenses except for hockey. If they somehow destroy it by overprinting or doing whatever Fanatics does to destroy things, and we have a significant pullback in sports cards from a demand perspective, I think it's certainly going to hurt. I don't think it's going to be catastrophic to anybody, but they are diversified. And at this point, they should have plenty of capital and a little bit of a war chest, just because we're now a year and a half into what's been not having much on the shelves.
This also brings another question to my mind. So I know that I learned a lot about the Pokemon market history because I think we both know it's really important. I just watched a bunch of Rudy's videos because he said he has like pretty much a log. And I just searched in Pokemon, and I just like over a couple of days, I just like went through and was like, oh, so that's what the market up and down looks like. You were actually mentioning a lot of information like I didn't actually know the details of. So like it's sort of like, how did you learn this? / how would someone who doesn't know much about the market cycles or history learn about it?
I mean, the unfortunate part of it is you kind of have to live it. You know, you can watch YouTube until you're blue in the face. But the unfortunate part about YouTube is there's a handful of us that actually do this for, I mean, it's not a living for me. It's a hobby, but it could be a living if I wanted it to be. But a lot of folks, they're, and I don't want this to sound derogatory, but it's more of a hobby. They're running rip and ships, or they're just super entertaining and people like to watch them. But from an overall market perspective, they don't have the full purview. They don't have, and again, nobody is ever going to have perfect information, complete information, but they're extremely limited. And, you know, you look at 1 or 2 of the folks that they're the friendlies, right? They're like, we should do this for MSRP and you shouldn't pay more than MSRP and this and that. But they have 1 distributor or 2 distributors. So unless you're talking to multiple folks, and I think what's interesting with the information that you can get from distribution, every rep that you have has a different purview because they're getting different information, and each distributor gets different information from Pokemon or Magic or any of the game creators, publishers. But also within the distribution, some of the distributors have more levels of hierarchy than others. So if you have direct meetings with your head of sales or your CEO every week, you're getting more direct information than you are if you're hearing it from a supervisor who had a meeting with the head of sales who had a meeting with the CEO of the company. So, you know, there's a handful of people on YouTube that have that level of information and others who don't. So I think, the unfortunate part is just kind of living through at least one of the ebbs and flows in this, and really paying attention to the market and reading the market. And the unfortunate part is if you don't have purview on what distro is getting and what distro has, and right now distro has nothing, you're not going to know the second distro starts to get product and starts to hold things on the shelves for more than 3 seconds. That's probably a red flag that things are starting to slow down, or that supply is really starting to ramp up.
Okay, shifting over a little bit to rip and ships. Just some questions on that. So like how, like kind of wondering what your take on them is, like how sustainable do you think they are? I remember I sometimes watch the Gary Vaynerchuk. He's like this business guy, really into like knowing how popularity and stuff works. And he was like talking about like he wasn't talking about Pokemon memberships, but he was talking about like in China they have like this person like streaming, and they're selling like something like I forgot the crazy number, like every minute, every 5 seconds, and it's just like really really fast. I was like, hey, that's just like rip and ships. And I was like, oh, actually, it would make sense if like this is just kind of becoming a thing. Um, and it's always sometimes it's really hard for me to think of like what's the next big thing. I know like Logan Paul was one of the last like stimulators from one of the previous bull market things. And obviously there was COVID. Yeah, but how do you? So I know that like there's some amount of me thinking like, well, as long as Pokemon's popular and like prices are high, then people are gonna go rip and ships. And I know gambling has been a thing forever, but like, yeah, what's your take on rip and ships?
So I think rip and ships are more of a psychological dopamine hit for people. So you get on stream, the guy, the hype man who's doing rip and ship. I mean, most of them are super entertaining. They're saying your name, your handle, everybody's cheering you on. It's like it's something you don't get in betting on sports or going to a casino. Ultimately, unless you're at the craps table and everybody's rooting for you except for the house. So I'm not sure that if the market would crash, it would go away, because whether somebody has to pay $10 for a pack or pay $3.50 for a pack, they're still getting that social pat on the back or pat on the head that they want. That's why they're doing this. And quite honestly, if they do have an addictive personality and it's a gambling problem, they're going to do it regardless of the price. So I think to some extent, there's always going to be somewhat of a rip and ship business. My issue with the business is not scalable. So, and that's not something we do. It's probably not something we're ever going to do, quite honestly. You can only rip packs so fast. Like your body only moves so fast, and everybody wants their appropriate amount of time in the sun. That's why they're going through rip and ships, right? Other than, you can snap your fingers and have access to it right now. It's like checking out of the grocery line and it's like, oh, there's a Kit Kat or something, or a Snickers bar. I'm going to buy that right now because it's here. So I think as the market slows, it's obviously going to slow to some extent. I think we're beyond the point of everybody and their brother doing it, because it's been a thing in a bull market for a little bit over a year. So I think generally speaking, if folks were going to do it, they would have done it already. And you'll have people who lose interest, people who come in, but I don't think the total market and number of available rip and shippers / packs is growing too much at this point. But it's going to be interesting to see. I think the one positive from your perspective and my perspective that rip and ships have done, specifically with Scarlet and Violet, knowing that there's been an aversion to reprint booster boxes and elite trainer boxes, is it's destroyed a lot of product that is still outstanding in Sword and Shield, because rip and ship in Sword and Shield wasn't nearly as prevalent to the extent it is now, which is, in my view, is part of the reason why we're seeing the booster box prices where they're at, $225, $350 for Paldea Evolved, because the product is incrementally more scarce than what it is for Sword and Shield, just given the amount of rip and shippers.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. And yeah, other people talked about that, about the difference in booster box prices, or like how Scarlet Violet's really close to Sword and Shield. And I was like, yeah, like, because like I do the price per pack analysis every day. I'm always like, yeah, it is true. Like the booster boxes are sometimes like the cheapest option, or like the price is so simple.
Did you do it yesterday or do it today? Because a lot of those Sword and Shield boxes have made pretty strong moves in the last day or two.
Oh, I mean for Scarlet. Scarlet.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, Sword and Shield, yeah, that's been moving up a lot, and I know that the price difference for the packs are the gap is a lot better. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see that. But honestly, sometimes the views are as good, so I just kind of adjust. Like I used to want to do, like I tried different video ideas, and like like foreign ones, like Japanese and like Korean ones, like they don't really get as many. So I'm like, okay, I guess I won't cover this. Like I would if you want me to. But yeah, like, yeah, I kind of got lucky because I bought in, like, I started like getting back into it, like I think about a year ago, And that's when it was like, Scarlet Blast is the obvious thing because like it's like cheap, it's available. I was like, okay, I'll just get it. It was actually stimulated because I had like 3 Sword and Shield boxes that someone bought, and those were the only 3 booster boxes I had bought. I was like, wow, if I had bought more of these, like it would have been so much better. And then I was like, oh, I should buy more. And I found Rudy, and I was like, wow, this guy has so many cases. And then that's kind of how that happened. But yeah, I'll transition to a more normal question. So
Sure.
like I keep since I'm more about like the holding thing, like what's like I'm kind of like wondering what your take is, like what do you think people should be doing now if they want to still do things with Pokemon? I guess if you're on the distribution side or if you're just trying to buy and hold, like what sets or what plays are kind of on your mind right now?
Yeah, so obviously we talked about Shrouded Fable being cheap and being available. The Pokemon Center ETBs. I'm a huge fan of Pokemon Center ETBs just because the point you just made, right? So Sword and Shield base boxes are $650 because they don't exist. There's a limited amount. So if we look at the total number of booster boxes and products for each one of these sets, you're talking millions and millions of booster box equivalents of packs that are printed. But we know with a high degree of confidence that the Pokemon Center ETBs have a finite print run that's somewhere between, call it 50,000 and 200,000 units. And yeah, we know that for varying reasons. And again, it could be much more than that, and we're wrong. But I think ultimately there is a finite population of those that is far less than what the normal ETBs are. But really what I'm focused on now, we have rotation coming in April of 2026. And I kind of liken it to an item going out of stock at Pokemon Center. So one of the things that we did in Discord, and this was when there was actually product in Pokemon Center, we were all buying Silver Tempest boxes hand over fist, and Silver Tempest was all over the place. And this was December 2024, so 8 months ago. But we were buying it 4 boxes at a time off Pokemon Center, and it was $143 and a couple cents per box. So the second it went out of stock at Pokemon Center, it was no longer available. So now you're entirely secondary market. The boxes immediately went to like $200, like within a week. And now we're starting to see those boxes continue to move up with Sword and Shield. And one point I do want to make, and I think this gets lost a lot. And I'm a fan of Reserve Investments. I don't know if you guys watch him. He's more like high level collectible finance. Every now and then he talks Pokemon, but he talks about how modern Pokemon isn't investable, and it's there's so many cards and this that, and he's dead on. But the one point that I don't think he's missing, he doesn't mention it, but I think the one point that a lot of folks miss is this is the same fucking conversation that happens in every single era, because the total amount of folks that are buying Pokemon, investing in Pokemon, ripping Pokemon, who like Pokemon, who know what Pokemon is growing every single day because the intellectual property is growing. So when Sun and Moon transition to Sword and Shield, everybody's like, well, Sun and Moon, it's been printed to oblivion versus XY, blah, 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 blah. So the same conversation happens over and over again. So from my perspective, I look at the April rotation outdate, not dissimilar to what happened with the Silver Tempest booster boxes that sold out at Pokemon Center. So once they go out of print, there's no more product coming into population. So your SV base, Paldea Evolved has already run relatively far. It doesn't mean it doesn't have further to run. Obsidian Flames, Paradox Rift, and then you have 151, and you have Paldean Fates, which is a set that rotates out that everybody forgets about. And with the Bubble Mew now being $500-600, that is a big sleeper in my view. And I know the ETBs have gone pretty far. The booster bundles and the displays are still reasonable. But once those sets rotate out, if you recall all the Sea and Sky boxes from Crown Zenith, for example, Crown Zenith packs in December of 2024 were still selling for $3.50. And everybody loved it, but they were everywhere because Sam's Club was dumping Sea and Sky boxes every single day, minimum 10, minimum 50 per membership per day. It was insanity. And then all of a sudden in March of 2025, they stopped because in April of 2025, it rotated out of play. So fast forward to July, the packs were at $7. So it doubled in a couple months. Now the packs are 11, $12. They're probably going to be close to $20 by the end of the year. But it's a factor of there being no new supply in the market, the confidence that the market has that there's not going to be any more supply, and then the continued degradation of the total number of packs and products out there because of the prevalence of rip and ship. So long story short, I'm focused on the cheapest of the products of SV 1 through 4.5. So your SV base, your Paradox Rift, and then obviously 151 and Paldean Fates. These products are all going to double shortly after they rotate out next year. And as I mentioned early on, if crypto is at least where it's at today, if not higher, the same with the market. And they both should be, just given current inflation rates and the value of assets just continuing to go up. Those boxes are going to be $350, $400 by the middle of next year. And I just don't see a scenario where they're not there.
Yeah, I would, it's funny because I actually wasn't super aware of the rotation cycle until like, let's say a couple of months ago. So I remember I've been tracking the data every day since like January. And I was like, yeah, I just started noticing over time. I was like, yeah, Crown's DX just suddenly gotten more expensive. And then I was like, wait, isn't the same thing about to happen to 151 Paldean Fates with the rotation? So yeah, I also just connected. I was like, oh yeah, it's been 4 months since then. Like I just saw based on the data, I was like, oh, Sea and Sky isn't as available. People aren't scalping as much, so I guess it's starting to run out. People are desperate for just some of the collection boxes. And yeah, I agree. I'm personally getting like some cheap 151 Paldea now, or I'm trying to get it because I'm just like, hey, it's 6 months away.
Yeah.
Just try and get it as like, because we talked about also like the mindset of like people trying to dump product, like you said, like around release time, like people with distribution access need like capital, so like they're willing like $5 or $10 difference or whatever, they don't really care as much. So yeah, right now I'm just like, oh, during the next 6 months, there's probably going to be like, out of Blooming Waters or poster collections for 151, or I've been getting a lot of like 3-pack blisters for Paldean Fates. Ironically, they're actually more expensive per pack than 151. So I've been like,
they're like $12.50.
Yeah. So like, yeah, like people are, and it kind of makes sense. Like they're printing more 151 than Paldean Fates. It feels like, although I feel like 151 might be better. I'm not sure, but I'm grabbing a little bit of both. And so yeah, I'm also targeting the earlier ones. It's also safer now because I don't exactly know what price I want to get on the newer stuff. Like maybe some cheaper prismatic, because the prismatic follows the same line. So I have that price per pack analysis of like the 151 items. I'm like, oh, like the specialty things that aren't printed as much, like the ETBs especially, or the UPCs. I'm like, oh, they're so much more expensive. And I look at prismatic, like the price per pack is like very similar between the cheaper items and the more expensive. I was like, should I pick these up eventually? But right now the priority is more 151 Paldean, but I might get some more prismatic because I'm like, hey, in like, I don't know, 6 months, 3 months, a year, like people are like, hey, why did I buy these when they were cheaper? It's not quite the $100 UPCs as 151, but still pretty good.
Yeah, so with prismatic, in my view, there's time, right? So as long as they continue to release ETBs for Costco and Sam's, and again, I wish somebody would send me a picture of the sealed case so I could see what the print date says on it, to see if they are actually reprinting these. I mean, I would imagine they're probably reprinting them at this point, but don't know for certain. I would imagine if they were reprinting, we would see a giant wave of ETBs at distribution for prismatic. But until we're months removed from seeing them show up at Sam's Club or Costco, I can only imagine that the price is going to get suppressed here a little bit, because people are going to assume, and then you still have product in vending machines, and if you go on TCG Player, you have an army of 60 sellers with like 3 feedbacks on there, and you know exactly who those folks are. So I don't really see a sense of urgency right now. Now, your sealed cases are always going to do well, but the loose ETBs are probably the play at some point in the future, just not quite yet. And I think you mentioned the super premium collection that came out. I believe there's a second wave of that coming at some point. I don't believe it's a reprint. It's probably the second wave of what they printed. I don't know for sure, but I would imagine that can probably be had for sub 200 at some point in time. And then, kind of moving on to 151. So one of the things I do is I pay a lot of attention to the big box stores and what they're selling. So what Walmart's selling, what Target's selling, because MJ Holdings and Excel get product before it goes to distribution. And it's been this way for at least the last year. So if you saw the Gen Con sale that Walmart was doing for Walmart Plus, they were offering 2 151 booster bundles for $50. I am anticipating booster bundles to hit distribution probably in the next 3 or 4 weeks and have another restock of 151 booster bundles coming through. The same with, and this one I don't know for sure, because sometimes the product gets redistributed from overseas because the demand for this stuff in Europe in English is far less than what it is here. So it can be moved around at some point in time. We've seen some Paldean Fate sticker collections go up for sale. Now I know the one Walmart sale has been a little bit of a shit show, but I think that may be something that's coming at some point. But I don't see a whole lot of Paldean Fates being reprinted and coming to market. We got a ton of booster bundles back in February. We got an assload of them, and we still have a good chunk. But you look at Paldean Fates rotating out, that Bubble Mew is going to be the first $1,000 card. I mean, obviously, other than the Umbreon, which is now under $1,000 in Prismatic. So one can only assume, and the pull rate's 1 in 400 packs, so it's far easier to pull than the Umbreon is. So if you look at the actual value of the card per pack pulled, it is a much higher value proposition right now than opening Prismatic. And if there's no more of it and it rotates out, I could see those packs going to $15, $20 very quickly. And the value of that card, you're not going to see in 151 for a long time. And I know 151 has a nostalgia, but I just think over the next year, Paldean Fates is a better option.
Yeah, I've been telling myself to just let the market decide, but I know that like the Bubble Mew is really up there. It also has like 2 other big chase cards. Yeah. Versus like 151 mostly just has a Charizard. So and then it is being printed more, so I'm just like, we'll see. I'm just grabbing both just in case.
The other thing that you see, one of the things I like to look at on TCG Player is how many loose packs are available in the market. So there's always thousands upon thousands of 151. And Paldean Fates has been under 1,000 available for a long, long time because there's no way to get packs. A lot of those packs have been worked through.
Yeah, and then despite that, like the pack price, I think it's still higher right now. So definitely the supply will be a big factor. I'm wondering.
And the backlog of supply is going to be an issue because there's so much 151 out there. I'm not sure there have been nearly as many people hoarding Paldean Fates.
Yep. Yeah, that's what it feels like to me too. Or like a lot of them are probably already opened. And then for Pokemon's perspective, like it feels like they're printing like the best sets or the most in-demand sets. The most like Surging Sparks got reprints over like Stellar Crown, Twilight, whatever. Like or at least it feels like there is more. And then like 151, obviously they're printing so much of that, and also Prismatic. So I agree with they can only print so much. And Paldean Fates is like just lower priority compared to like 151.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And one of the things that they said, this was the Pokemon company. This was back in March, April, or May. They had an offsite in Texas, and I heard this secondhand. But they mentioned that they do not have a meaningful way to increase print capacity until Q1 2026, and that's because their Millennium print group it's a wholly owned subsidiary, but they run it independently. So they have many other customers than Pokemon because you don't buy a print group that's a functioning business and destroy the functioning business just to print your own product. It doesn't work that way. So basically what they said was we have print capacity booked through year end, and then things start to free up in Q1 of 2026. Now, they've been able to offload a lot of their European printing to their print facilities in the Netherlands that they started building, I believe, in 2022 and is now fully functional. But they've also had some delays and some issues in calibrating the printers to the point where a lot of the product in Europe has been delayed just because of it. If you didn't know, for years, almost all the product in Europe was printed out of North Carolina at Millennium Print Group.
Oh, I actually didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of like little details that I only get to hear if I just like happen to see it in someone's video or something. Otherwise, I just get the overview. I'm like, I guess it probably works that way. I don't know.
Yeah. So ETBs, even the black and white ETBs, were all printed in the U.S. So it'll say printed in the U.S. if it was printed here. The booster boxes, I believe, all the booster boxes for the SV era will say printed in the US and Netherlands. So the US, I believe, prints the high value cards. All the junk cards are printed in Netherlands. Then they're shipped over there to be collated in packs. And quite honestly, the quality of the print run in the Netherlands is far and away better than what it is in North Carolina. We've had folks open boxes of both, and just the gradability of the European cards is far and away better. And I'm talking like Paradox Rift, which was absolute garbage print quality in the US.
That's really interesting as far as like I don't know, arbitrage opportunity or like just knowing which ones, because like people will want to grade the cards if they know like, oh, these are worse, these are better, but also like bad grading also helps raise the price. Like the Magic card for Paldea Evolves, I hear that has pretty bad print quality for a 10.
It does, and the crazy thing is if you get a card out of the pack and you can see the edge look like a dog chewed it, you know that the knife's going sharp, and you're not going to grade it right. But if you look at the Magic carpet, I think the PSA 10 rate's like 35% or something like that. This is people looking at the card and saying, hey, I'm probably not going to spend the $35 for mildly expedited grading because it's probably not going to be a 10. These folks are sending cards in expecting to get a 10, and 65% of them, or whatever the number is, are getting kind of disappointed. So it's interesting for sure.
I'm gonna read some of these comments. There's a bunch of positive comments, and then
I forgot we're live streaming. I didn't even look at them. Let me load it on mute, and so I can read them as well.
Okay. So you can load that. I actually did know StreamYard auto load the comments in my last live stream. I had to just log on, go onto my own stream, and just watch for the questions every now and then.
No, I can actually click on comments to the right, and it shows. Cool.
Yeah, I had no idea. I can't even post here. I was like, oh, cool. They actually handled everything.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay.
But yeah, thanks for everyone who's joining. Well, I'll just read also like Ryan Boyette, Card Vibe, Greninja Zone, Amber Rogan, Zhanghan Cha, Jumbo Slice, Tony King of the Ozone, Card Vibe. He said that Rudy mentioned the upcoming Fed rate cut could influence the market.
You were reading the names. I thought you were having a stroke for a second. I'm like, what the fuck is he saying? And I just realized you're reading the names. It's kind of funny.
Oh. This is what happens when like there's no like visuals. You just hear a voice like, what's like I could be doing literally whatever I want right now. You're like, oh, I don't know what he's doing. Jumbo Slice said that when they turn the TV, half of the ads are for sports betting. So ripperships, I think they're making an analogy with gambling. I think they're here to stay.
Let me touch on the Card Vibe comments. So Rudy mentioned the upcoming Fed rate cut, and look, everybody's been projecting 5 rate cuts a year for the last 3 years because it's in everybody's interest, because you want the value of assets to go up if you want to sell stocks. Now, I'm not sure we're going to get a rate cut. I'm not sure he's right. I think inflation's still running a little hot, but ultimately when the Fed cuts rates, the rate of interest you can earn by having your money sitting in savings or a CD or some sort of corporate bond fund, municipal bond fund, goes down by a relatively similar rate if it's not fixed rate debt. So that just means conceptually folks are going to look at the rate of return that they're earning from their investment and potentially look for something better. So 25 basis points isn't going to do anything in my view. It's something that's going to change over time, because quite honestly, if I could still get 3.5 or 3.75% in a CD, which I don't do, but that's not materially different than getting 4.25%, but it's worlds different than getting 25 basis points, which is kind of where we were 3 years ago. So it could be bullish. I don't think it's going to have a significant impact.
Yeah, I'm actually not the biggest financial guy when it comes to like interest rates and all the other sort of investments. So like I like get these like secondary sort of views. I'm like, oh, Rudy does other investments. I guess like it was sad, but like for some of this stuff, that was my only source of news for this stuff. Like I was like, oh, the market's about to crash for stocks. I didn't know that. Crypto's about to happen. I didn't know that. Like I'll just like tune into Pokeball once a day and I'll like tune out. So it's good to get different takes on this.
Yeah. Look, if you're using Rudy for your financial market news, hey, good luck.
Yeah. Well, it's
he's
like
pretty good with this stuff.
Yeah, like I'm like, well, as long as I don't act on it, it's just sort of like once I act on it, I'm like, oh. But for me, like I like to like spend a lot of time on like one thing sometimes. So it's like, oh, I want to get more into like investing in stocks and stuff. But like I'm like, oh, but I'd want to put in so much like effort in that. And I don't know if I can know that the same way I know Pokemon. And then so I'm like, so I've been like procrastinating basically.
Well, so fun fact, if anybody's actually watching this thing,
We have 30 people watching.
So if you turn on CNBC and you see all the talking heads that are on there, not the anchors, the other folks, they all pay to be on there. So they're paying money to get on CNBC to talk their book. So when you're listening to those folks, they are speaking their agenda. So anyway, just so you guys are aware, I actually know somebody whose wife was the person that would schedule folks and collect the fees, etc.
Oh, yeah, I actually did not know that. Like, I always figured there's some sort of like agreement going on, but like I never like get the actual details. So it just ends up being a conspiracy theory talk.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah. Well, that's why you got a bunch of people who was like that guy that Ross Gerber idiot that was always pumping Target. He was like the dumbest motherfucker on the planet, but he played to go on there. It was great.
let's see. I'm gonna look through some other questions.
Probably 0 people in this chat know what I just said, but that's okay.
We'll see if there's any comments on that.
Can you explain why the new Paladin Fates booster bundles are the old CZ shape? So for a while now, there have been 2 different sizes of booster bundles. So you have the big box ones, which are the oversized. I believe Surging Sparks has a lot of those. It's actually a 20 count case, whereas a 25 count case is the smaller, the normal size. I assume the bigger ones are a bigger footprint for big box stores. So again, you get back to the Pokemon company wanting a billboard that, hey, this is Pokemon. You should come and buy it. This is really freaking awesome. I believe they were intended for big box stores. And if you're printing booster bundles, you're going to use the exact same outer packaging. So you don't have to reset up machines and then just ship your overflow to distribution.
Oh, do you think you're thinking that far ahead?
So Pokemon plans their sets on 3-year blocks. So they're planned out through 2028 or 2029. Like the group has to understand Pokemon is run with a Japanese mindset, whereas in America, everybody's like squirrel and looking for the next big thing. This is not how, like Hasbro, for example, they're managing quarter to quarter because they're a public company. And quite honestly, if they don't hit this quarter, they might not be there. So that's all they give a shit about. That's why you continue to see them making stupid decisions for the long-term value of Magic. Now, it's improved significantly over the last 12 to 18 months, but ultimately it's only a matter of time before they stub their toe. Whereas the Pokemon company being a private joint venture across 3 partners, they are able to plan out. And the Japanese culture, what was it? SoftBank has a 200-year plan. Like most people in the US don't have a 200-minute plan. So it's just a different mindset where they're building they're focused on building the brand over decades and generations. And Hasbro's planning to let's get through Q3. That's why you see all the Amazon dumps at the end of the quarter, because everything's about satisfying the American short mindset and attention span. So it's completely apples and oranges.
That puts a lot of context to the Rudy videos I've been watching about Magic.
Yes.
Hasbro. Yeah, like I think literally like yesterday, today, he was like, whatever executive is watching this, please listen to me. I know you can't like tell them that you watch it, but please just listen to me anyway or something.
Yes. Blink if you're in distress.
Yeah. it took me a while to realize what like emails to myself meant. I would like watch the videos and I was like, what does emails to myself mean? I was like, oh. After I saw like a couple, I was like, okay.
Yeah, so Mr. Chua, I probably pronounced that wrong. If you go back, we talked at length about just the strategy between pushing products through big box stores versus pushing them through distribution versus the impact of rip and ships on product. I don't really want to rehash it because I only have about 18 minutes before I have to jump on another real work call. But long story short is I actually agree with Nostalgianomics. I disagree with Rudy that it is the right move for varying reasons, such as the employees at big box stores are happy to take a couple $100 and sell all the product to one person who's going to now sell it back on the market at a higher price, which is actually a greater evil than distro marking the product up a little bit and selling it to LGSs. So anyway, let's keep going through the questions here. Crown Zenith PSA 10. I mean, look, yeah, as things age, generally speaking, your PSA 10s of your hit cards in your older sets, they're going to appreciate in value. I don't do much with the singles market, quite honestly, because that's not the kind of business I have. You know, sealed product is a commodity. I don't have to worry about the distribution of the cards after I open the product because it's a random distribution of cards inside the product. That's why there's a little bit of a gambler's premium in there. Undersupply of ETBs. This is an interesting one. This is from Agent Crypto. So in the Scarlet Violet era, Sword and Shield at the end, they dumped all kinds of ETBs. In fact, you know, we have our first anniversary kind of sale coming up this weekend, and I'm giving away some Silver Tempest ETBs. I bought them last summer from one of the distributors they were dumping them at $250 per case because there were so damn many of them. And I think, you know, most of you guys are aware that even in 2024 for Black Friday, we had Lost Origin, Silver Tempest. I kind of remember, Lost Origin, Silver Tempest. I kind of think there was one or two others that were hitting Target or wherever for Black Friday because there were just so damn many printed. For Scarlet Violet, they've stopped reprinting boosts or ETBs. And from my perspective, I think they've made a concerted effort, and this is going to be a little stupid and technical, to not print ETBs to the extent. So when you look at the ETB, the actual box itself is laminated cardboard. If you look at the X boxes, they're just taking your stock cardboard and they're cutting it and folding it. So there's an extra couple steps in making the actual ETB boxes. They're printing them and making them. They're not buying them. And then you have the ancillary of getting all the plastic parts from China, which I quite honestly don't think is a big issue. I think it's more the increased amount of time and the magnitude of effort to make the ETB boxes, which is why they've backed away from it.
Yeah, booster bundles are also really popular too. Like they're actually in good demand. Yeah, but I did feel like they're just printing more of their smaller products or easier to make products.
Yeah. Just Brett has a question here. Are Pokemon fans actually moving over buying Magic? We can couple that one with Tony King of the Ozone and laughing at me quoting 4.25% return. If you have a couple $1,000,000 and you're making 4.25% to do nothing, that's great. If you have 10 grand, 4.25% doesn't excite anybody. So they are, because a lot of folks that are in Pokemon now are gamblers, and they're looking at the price of Magic boxes going up, and they continue to buy. It's kind of like the GameStop short squeeze, right? Only, there's not a bag of shit at the end of the rainbow. Things are going to slow down at some point, but it's certainly not going to go to zero.
And then I think there's some troll comments or questions, but I think the last one I see is about the buying booster boxes and cases by Jumbo Slice at the bottom early. Yeah, I've actually been noticing that too. Like I would buy a lot of there was like one or two sites I like buying booster boxes and cases from, and so like I have a good amount. I was like, oh, I can get them, and they're really clean too. Versus if you get from like a Walmart drop or wherever, even if you're buying secondhand, it's like you're not gonna get a case most of the time. So yeah, I feel like the case premium stuff's gonna drive some people to either buy earlier, like even buying at release could be okay because a lot of stuff is still going down at release. But yeah, like Destined Rivals is like $40 more per booster box for just a case. And then if you can get like some people even go after the sealed things like bundle displays or whatever. So I think it is easiest to get it around release. The price point though, it does get a little dangerous over time, and I don't really want to do it for certain sets maybe, or I want to like maybe do more one set than the other. But yeah, I've been interested in that for a bit, like just making sure I can get the cases. I actually bought Destined Rivals too high. I was like, the side I wanted to get it, I was selling for $275 each. I was like, okay, I'll just buy it. Buy like 6 cases, not too much. And then now it's like, oh wow, genius investment, baby. Or at least it wasn't as bad. I was just like, wow, I lost a couple hundred. I'll just store this for years and it'll be fine.
So sorry, Dave. Next time I'll say bag of poop. I bet you didn't realize we were talking about Lorcana, so I'll apologize for that. So no, look, it's interesting, and you touched on the Sword and Shield base box where the cards themselves are completely garbage, but the fact that the box is so rare adds value. And then you look at the 151 Pokemon Center ETB cases versus the Lucy's, and then you look at the prismatic Pokemon Center cases versus Lucy's because they were only for sale for a couple hours. And then you think of all the direct or all the big box sales where there's one-off ETBs selling all over the place. There's no action. There's a material shortage of sealed cases compared to what we've seen in the past, which makes it a collectible item. Now, the unfortunate thing with cases is when I get a pallet of cases from distribution, there's probably 80% of them that are in really good shape, and the rest of them are kind of junk. They're dinged, the labels aren't great. So it's kind of hit or miss there. But if you have a sealed case of ETBs, they're gonna start to carry a pretty sizable premium. And again, look at Prismatic. You have ETB cases $13.50 when the individual ETBs can be had for $95 on Facebook Market, $105 at scale. I don't hate Lorcana. I was just being a smartass. I'm sorry.
You read that comment too. I was laughing at that.
We have to have fun here when we're talking about children's card games.
I think we'll probably get going for maybe another 10 minutes. I do got to leave by like 2. So 2 things. One of them is this came into mind. Do you know why? Like, what's your take on why Surging Sparks has been so like? I know there was a couple of it's been like so like level. Like it's just always like it never surpasses 260. And like the other boxes are getting really close to price to it. Another one is like, what's your take on tariffs?
So Surging Sparks, look, this market is super resilient. So think of it this way. Everybody has, hey, Surging Sparks booster box is worth $250, $260 in their head. So when there's a reprint, we're on like reprint number 3 now. People throw their boxes on TCG Player at $220, or they're on Facebook Marketplace at $210, or on private websites at $200, $210. People are going to look at that and say, well, I remember this is a $250, $260 box. I'm going to buy it. And not everybody has to do that, but you need enough people to do that to level the market out. And that's where the resilience comes from, because people have accepted that the value of the Surging Sparks box is $250 to $260. And it is what it is. We're probably going to get a wave of Destined Rivals that comes out and ships with Mega Evolutions, because a lot of their booster box and ETB reprints come with new set releases. And I'd be shocked if it moves the price of those boxes by $15. It kind of is what it is. On tariffs, not super relevant for Pokemon because everything's printed in the US. It is sort of relevant for Magic. Now, for those of you who may not know, since the Cynthia Williams print everything to 0 days, the collector box printing has been occurring in Japan. For Edge of Eternities, all of the Edge of Eternities collector boxes are printed in the US, presumably because they had to pivot because they didn't know what the tariff situation was going to look like. I think it's a much bigger problem for Bandai, for Gundam, for One Piece, for all of those games. Sorcery printing in China, Weiss printing in Malaysia, I believe. I know on the Nikki set that came in, there was some tariff, but on some of these other sets coming up, it's a solid 15%. So it's going to have an impact, and we're going to be the ones who pay it, or the Canadians, because they're all getting hammered. So it's like a 25% retaliatory tariff or something insane.
Yeah, it changes all the time, I feel like. That Nikki set I've been hearing Rudy talk about for like months now. I didn't buy it, and then today he said that like it went down. I was like, oh, actually, I'll buy some. So I found a case for like 1100. I just bought it, and I was like, I don't own any of it, but I was like, oh, whatever. I'll just put 1,000 on it. Like, I kind of missed out on the Final Fantasy one. I've been trying not to venture out of Pokemon, but I was like, oh, I kind of would have liked to have like a case of Final Fantasy collectors. But I've been trying to keep it like if I don't know anything about it, don't invest in it. But I was like, okay, I'll just put in like 1K here. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. So the one question I do want to answer. So Pokemon, why wouldn't MTG slow down releases and focus on getting enough play boxes out to players? So the short answer is because they don't want to. So they've realized that if they start to tighten up the print runs on play boxes, and if you recall, back in March, they reinstituted MSRP, which is something they hadn't had in the past. So a company doesn't reinstitute a target price without planning to hit that target price. And the only way to do it is to start short printing the boxes. So we saw Final Fantasy get up to north. I think MSRP is 209. It's way over that now. Edge of Eternities came out at 130, 140. There's a shortage of those. They're not reprinting until January of 2026. If you're interested, I did a video last night on the reprinting schedule through the end of Q1 for Magic, which is pretty interesting if you care about those things. But the Spider-Man play boxes, I've heard from multiple distributors that there's 20% reduction in play boxes compared to Edge of Eternities. That is 100% because they're pushing it through Amazon direct to consumer. Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast has been jealous of Pokemon Center and how Pokemon has a very strong direct to consumer presence that they've never had. So all that Magic has had to do, increase the value of play boxes and sell them for MSRP on Amazon when nobody else has them. And bam, you are a direct to consumer juggernaut. And that's what they're doing. You're going to see a ton of Spider-Man come through. The Final Fantasy reprint for play is in November. I would be shocked if they're not selling them like candy to children at Halloween by September here, because they're going to take the first chunk and sell it direct to consumer through Amazon. And just think about the math, right? So if I'm Wizards of the Coast, I'm selling us a Final Fantasy box, and these are reasonably close to real numbers, to distribution for $102, right? Distribution is selling a play box to me for $120 to $125. Then I'm selling to the consumer for $209. Well, if I sell directly through Amazon at $209, I'm paying Amazon 5% of that, and I'm keeping everything. So the actual margin, the revenue numbers, more than twice what they're getting through distribution, but their actual margin, assuming their cost per box is $5, $10, it's astronomically more from a percentage perspective. And that's how they can show margin expansion on flat or sometimes down revenue numbers, quarter over quarter, year over year.
That also brings a lot more context to the Rudy video I saw, because I don't really keep up Magic that much outside of like it's been getting into my feed a little bit more. But yeah, you just explained the Amazon thing a little bit more. I just was like, oh, people are getting to Magic, collector boxes going up. Amazon dumpster, they're starting to. Yeah, I did see that like direct to consumer kind of thing. That Pokemon already has through Pokemon Center. I wonder. I guess for a Pokemon, like if they probably have Pokemon Center, they're still like not able to reach a lot of people, so they don't just put more. Like I'm kind of thinking this out loud now, but like they have the big box stores which have more physical presence. But Pokemon Center itself, like I guess a lot of the scalpers or online people get that. I don't know, because they already have their website. They don't fully need to go to big box stores.
Yeah, but I mean, keep in mind, I mean, these corporations, they're planning years in advance. So when presumably now, again, Wizards has proven that they can do the dumbest shit on the planet, whether it's intentional or not, I don't know. But presumably they've been attempting to get to direct to consumer through Amazon at a reasonable price point for a while now. Obviously, that was dumps with Cynthia Williams here before she got fired by Funko, which is kind of hilarious. But I think they got there at this point in time. And, you know, For the Hamburglar, I just read the first 5 letters of the name there. Wizards Hasbro is the ultimate nut puncher. Yeah, the fact that they've gotten away from serialized cards for Spider-Man and for Avatar just tells me they want to be able to print the shit out of collector boxes, maximize how much they make, and they want to rip all of our faces off because they've done nothing but the right thing for 12 months. It's about time they fuck everybody. So sorry about your kid. Hopefully he doesn't say fuck that bag of shit now.
Okay, so we have.
So let's wrap it up. I have like a minute or two, and I gotta jump. I just got my notification.
All right. Yeah, we could probably end it a little bit. I will give you back some time, so you have some time to prepare. Thanks for joining the stream. Thanks for everyone joining. It really means a lot. Hopefully, I think I learned a lot from this live stream, so I recommend people watch it and subscribe to Anon. He has a lot of good information. That's it for me. Any closing words?
No, look, just appreciate the conversation and spending an hour here and 20 minutes earlier, just kind of getting to know each other. And and any questions, feel free to reach out. You can join my Discord, PM me at any point in time, and follow both channels. So thank you very much, guys, and enjoy your what day is it? Wednesday?
I think so.
Wednesday. So all right. See you, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, guys.